If you're watching this right now, chances are that you've outgrown a version of yourself. Maybe you can't quite name it yet. You just know that the life that you've been living suddenly feels too small. Maybe you're restless or you feel stuck or you're tired of pretending that you're fine when you're not. And maybe you even catch yourself wondering, is this all there is? Now, most people think that that feeling is a problem. Not me. I think it's a signal that you're ready. I think it means that you're being called to step into a bigger version of yourself. And in this video, I want to walk you through how I learned to listen to the call through fear, through synchronicity, and through unexpected signs, and how you can too. So when I think about my own wake-up calls, one that still takes my breath away happened a few months after my cancer diagnosis. I was sitting alone in a Starbucks in New York City, and I was just having one of those moments, just crying into my coffee. And I found myself asking the same questions over and over again, and they went something like this. Will I ever be normal? Will anyone ever love me? Will I even survive this? And through my tears, in that moment, I don't know, something in me just said, look up. And I saw this giant billboard of the great fighter Muhammad Ali. It's an iconic photo. Maybe you've seen it before. And he's standing over Sonny Liston. And under this iconic photo were these words. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. Holy shit. Sitting in that coffee shop with the mascara halfway down my face, I realized something life-changing. I had the power to challenge my own impossible and create something even better than the life that I'd lost. That chance encounter became the catalyst for transforming not just my health, but my entire life philosophy. And the most important thing I learned through that journey, what I wish someone had told me when I was overwhelmed and terrified and totally paralyzed, is this. There are two voices in your head. One screams, don't try, you'll fail. The other whispers, you have what it takes. Now, most of us let the loud one win. We talk ourselves out of possibilities before we even give them a real look. We convince ourselves that our deepest desires, what we really long for, are unrealistic. Maybe it's too risky, too late, too big, too much. And then all that too muchness slowly turns on us, right? And it becomes not enoughness. And so we shrink and we play small and we hunker down in the little boxes that we built for ourselves to make us feel safe, to make us feel in control. But hiding the truest parts of ourselves only works for so long, and then pop goes the weasel. Suddenly, you're crying in the grocery store cereal aisle, not because you're sad, but because you've chosen the sensible cereal for 15 years, and you don't even like it, but you don't even know what you like anymore. I mean, you are bored out of your mind, you're living on autopilot, but hey, at least it's safe, and safe feels better than scared, right? Wrong. What if your impossible isn't a limitation? What if it's an invitation, a dare from life itself to become more of who you're meant to be? Those desires, creative sparks, and gut instincts that keep showing up, even when you try to silence them, they're not random. They're breadcrumbs leading you toward what you're here to become. Look, I never planned to become an expert on turning fear into fuel. But living with stage 4 cancer for more than 20 years has taught me how to go the distance with fear, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Every transformation has a doorway, and fear is usually the bouncer. That day in Starbucks, I realized it wasn't blocking me, it was pointing me through. And here's the thing about fear. It doesn't always shout in words. You've probably had this experience. Sometimes it shows up in your body first. The tightness in your chest, the sleepless nights, the fatigue that no amount of coffee can fix. Those aren't always random health glitches. Sometimes they're messages. The body speaks in symptoms when the soul is ready for change. And when we ignore those early signals, well, life just finds louder ways to get our attention. Carl Jung called fear the guardian of transformation. It appears right before we cross into a truer version of ourselves. Now, for me, that crossing began in that coffee shop. I realized that I couldn't keep living for approval or for safety. I had to start living my own truth. Now, I wish that I could tell you that that awakening was a one-time thing, one and done, right? Enlightenment. No. Just like a neat movie moment where everything shifts and you ride off into your best life. It wasn't. It was the start of what I now see as a lifelong class called being human. The lessons don't stop when you think you've graduated. They just change outfits, showing up as people, as illnesses, as heartbreaks, disappointments, detours. Each one strips away the surface stuff, though. It strips away the pretending, the performing, the I'm fine masks until the only thing that's left is what's real. And that, my friends, is where real growth happens, in that messy, honest place that dares you to be more you. So years later, I had to face fear again, but this time it had to do with my livelihood. So at the time, I was working with a small publishing company, and I had kind of outgrown them. And I was also working with an agent who, unbeknownst to me, really didn't believe in me. Now, this agent went to pitch a doctor's book to a publisher called Hay House, and this is a publisher that I had secretly dreamed of working with. And they said, well, that sounds like an interesting book, but we're actually not really into that doctor's book right now. We're interested in what Chris Carr wants to write next. Well, my agent was frustrated because she wanted to walk away with a deal for her other author. And so she told them that I didn't have any ideas. And to make matters worse, she also said that I had no business writing the books that I was writing. Now, by the way, I was already a New York Times bestselling author. Well, something really wild happened. The publisher reached out to me directly, which was a professional no-no. You just didn't do that. And I remember this conversation that I had with the head of Hay House. And he said, hey, we just thought that you should know how you're being represented. And he told me what my agent had said. And he also said, we believe in you. So that moment was both devastating and liberating, and I was so grateful for it. I was, of course, scared to leave the safety of the publisher and the agent that I knew, but I also knew that I couldn't stay where I wasn't valued. So that night, driving down one of those giant San Diego freeways that have like 8 lanes and all this chaos and tons of traffic, I remember telling my husband about how much I admired Louise Hay for starting Hay House in her 60s and for changing millions of lives. I mean, you've probably read one of Louise's books. If you haven't, you should. It's incredibly life-changing. And so I'm yammering on, and suddenly he goes, oh my gosh, babe, look ahead. Look at that license plate. It says Hay House. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So we pull beside the car, and sitting behind the wheel is Louise herself, smiling. And she's probably doing her affirmations. I love you, Louise. I really love you. All is well, And I am just laughing. I'm losing it. Now, at first I thought it was a crazy coincidence, but later I realized it had nothing to do with the license plate or Louise. The real sign was how I felt in my body when I saw it. What I felt was calm and sure about the decision that I was making. Like I had already crossed the line from fear to faith. The experience didn't give me permission. It just reflected my readiness. That's what signs are, external echoes of an internal decision. They don't tell us what to do, they confirm what we already know. So the next time you see a sign, don't just ask, what does this mean? Ask yourself what it's reflecting back, what you already know, but you haven't trusted yet. Because insight is only half the conversation. The other half is what you do with it. The real work, as you know, is acting on the message. Now, some people would call that coincidence, that experience that I had, right? Jung called it synchronicity, when your inner and outer world start to rhyme, they start to sync up. But here's the science part. Our brains are actually wired for it. It's called attentional bias because we notice what matters most to us. Now, psychologists say that you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. When you're afraid, you notice danger. When you're hopeful, you notice possibility. That day on the freeway, I was nervous and uncertain, but I was also ready. And when you're ready, life can reflect it back to you in ways that feel almost supernatural. But not because the universe is doing some magic tricks, but because your focus and your energy are finally aligned. So if you've been feeling that same ache that I felt in the coffee shop, maybe it's time to listen to the voice that keeps whispering to you, babe, you're meant for more. For me, that moment felt like a wink from life. It taught me that signs can also be invitations. And maybe that's where you are right now, standing between what's known and what's next, feeling that whisper that says, you're meant for more. Okay, so let's take a step back now. If all this talk about change is making you anxious, that is totally normal. It's just the part of you that wants to stay safe. Now, here's the thing. You don't need to know where this road leads. You don't need to have a plan. All you need to do is just stop pretending that you're satisfied when you're not. Because as you know already, pretending is exhausting and eventually you just can't keep it up. So when that moment comes, don't panic. It's not failure. It's just the truth trying to wiggle its way out. So fear's been one of my best teachers. It always shows me where I'm still hiding. In fact, I have never done anything meaningful without fear riding shotgun. Books, marriage, business, all of it. And every time I walk through it, I find more strength waiting on the other side. So, my friend, if you are standing at your own crossroads, I want you to remember that you are not being punished. You are being invited. Mary Oliver said it best. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Wild and precious doesn't mean fearless. It means awake. Awake enough to cry in a Starbucks and still see a billboard filled with hope and fire. Awake enough to drive down a California freeway and recognize the sign, literal and symbolic, that says, this way. And maybe that's the truth Pema Chodron was pointing to when she said, the only way out is through. Because in the end, we don't escape fear. We walk with it, one shaky, beautiful step at a time. So if this video found you today, maybe it's because you're ready to challenge your own impossible. Maybe it's time to look at your fear and just say, thank you for warning me. I appreciate you, but I'm going to move forward anyway. Now, if that's you, I want you to write in the comments, I'm moving forward. And if you want my help, if you want me to coach you through it further, then I made a free experience for you. It's called Unstuck and Unstoppable, and you can get it in the link below. And know this, you are not alone. We are all doing this together. We are all just wobbling home, laughing and ugly crying and stumbling and learning how to live with big open hearts. So don't stop now. Stay with it.